I settle myself beneath the sprawling branches of an old oak, and the shade falls over me like a soft blanket. The warmth of the afternoon sun filters through the leaves above, dappling my skin in patches of light and shadow. I can feel the ground beneath me, soft, cool, welcoming, and I lean back against the sturdy trunk, letting its rough bark support me. My body relaxes almost instantly, as if it knows that for this moment it doesn't need to hold itself up. I'm in the tree's care. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves above me, and I close my eyes. Each gust is a sigh, a tender whisper that floats past my ear, as though nature itself is inviting me to let go, to drift into the simple, untroubled peace that I've come here searching for. I hear the laughter of children nearby, echoing faintly, bright, spontaneous bursts that ripple across the small park. Their voices rise, reach me, then slowly fade into the background, replaced by the soft rumble of cars passing on the road a few yards away. It's an odd mix, the laughter of children, free and joyful, against the low, relentless hum of the world continuing to move, a reminder that time and life press forward, even in moments like these. I open my eyes slightly, gazing up at the canopy above. Sunlight plays across the leaves, tiny bursts of golden light that slip between their edges. The light moves with the breeze, swaying in a gentle rhythm. Every now and then, a ray shifts, catching my eyes, soft and warm. It feels almost alive, like it's brushing against me, coaxing me to stay awake and take it all in. But sleep tugs at me, persistent and gentle, and I find myself sinking deeper into the shade. The world seems to grow quieter, but in this quiet, every sound feels clearer. A bird trills nearby, its call rising sharply before disappearing. I hear leaves rustling as they catch the breeze, a delicate, whispery sound that feels like a lullaby. The children's laughter rises again, faint now, as though it's coming from a far-off place. It mixes with the sound of tires on the road, a strange harmony of peace and motion. I breathe in deeply, the air cool and filled with the earthy smell of grass and soil. There's a purity in it, an uncomplicated stillness that I've longed for. My thoughts start to drift as I sit there. I think of everything and nothing all at once, of the life that's brought me here, of the things I've done and left undone. It's strange how moments of peace bring out these contrasting thoughts. Part of me feels weightless, suspended in the quiet simplicity of this moment, while another part of me is still tangled in life's restless demands. I feel the world pulling at me, whispering that I'll have to return to it soon. But here, under the tree, I can pretend, just for a little while, that nothing else exists. A child's voice cuts through the silence, a high, clear laugh that catches in the air and then vanishes as suddenly as it came. I find myself smiling without knowing why, lulled by the innocence in that sound. How easily children seem to live in the moment, finding joy in the simplest of things. They don't yet know the burdens of time or the pull of unfinished dreams. Their laughter is like a reminder, one that floats around me, light and free, reminding me of simpler days. The sunlight shifts again, a stray ray landing on my closed eyelids, warm and insistent. I blink, half opening my eyes, watching as the dappled light moves with the leaves. It dances in the breeze, soft, teasing. I feel myself teetering on the edge of sleep, cradled by the sounds around me, by the gentle push and pull of light and shadow. I think, just for a moment, that maybe I could stay here forever, rooted, still, part of this quiet world. As I sit there, half lost in the lull of the day, I feel a tiny, unexpected weight settle on my hand. I open my eyes slowly, and there it is, a fly, resting right on the back of my hand. I'm almost too drowsy to react, and so I simply stare, my vision soft and unfocused, curious in this hazy, dreamlike state. The fly is small, but astonishingly intricate, almost as though it has been crafted by some unseen hand with meticulous precision. Its tiny body glints faintly in the sunlight, a deep, iridescent black, with the slightest sheen of blue-green. The thorax is covered with fine, almost invisible hairs that catch the light as it shifts, forming a delicate fuzz over its dark, armored body. Its legs, impossibly slender, end in tiny, nearly translucent pads, which press softly against my skin, holding it steady. I watch as its wings, barely visible and thin as silk, shiver slightly, almost as if they're flexing. They're like two panes of glass, perfectly translucent, but tinged at the edges with the faintest rainbow hue, a delicate, otherworldly shimmer that changes as they move. Each vein in the wings is visible in intricate detail, forming a kind of natural latticework, like delicate stained glass, thin yet sturdy enough to carry it wherever it needs to go. The fly's eyes, two enormous orbs in proportion to its small head, are mesmerizing. Each eye is made up of countless tiny lenses, like a honeycomb of faceted gems that reflect the light in strange, alien patterns. They glisten, unblinking, holding an almost unnatural awareness, as if they're watching me back, both intelligent and unknowable. I'm struck by the idea that this tiny creature, so ordinary and easily overlooked, holds a world of wonders in its tiny frame, each part as perfect as a machine, yet alive. In my half-asleep days, a strange thought drifts into my mind, quiet, yet undeniable. I wonder what it would be like to be so small, to see the world through those kaleidoscopic eyes, to feel the hum of tiny wings beating at impossible speeds. My gaze blurs, and my mind slips deeper into this daydream. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of sleep pressing down on me, as though I'm being pulled away from myself. Then, suddenly, everything changes. I'm no longer beneath the tree, but standing on the vast surface of something that stretches endlessly around me, a plane that curves and dips, shifting slightly with each passing moment. My surroundings are overwhelming, every detail now magnified, every sound sharper, louder. My senses are filled with an intense awareness, a vibration that seems to hum through every fiber of my being. I glance down, or what feels like down, and see the fine, dark hairs on 6 slender legs extending from my body, each one touching the ground with a strange, tactile precision. I realize, with a jolt of astonishment, that I have become the very fly I had been watching. I am inside this minute body, feeling its fragile strength. I can sense each hair on my legs, feel the incredible lightness in my wings as they twitch, ready to lift me at the slightest impulse. The surface beneath me, which I now recognize as my own hand, feels massive, like a vast, textured landscape of skin, the grooves and tiny ridges appearing as ridged hills and valleys. The warmth of it radiates upwards, almost overwhelming, and the earthy, familiar smell of human skin fills the air around me. Through compound eyes, the world is a fractured mosaic, filled with countless tiny images of the sunlight, the tree branches, the patch of grass stretching out in all directions. Each fragment is slightly different, each one moving with dizzying clarity as my perspective shifts. The breeze feels more like a powerful force now, a wave of pressure that could lift me away in an instant. I sense my wings tensing in response, ready to take flight at a moment's notice. Strangely, I don't feel trapped. There's an unexpected peace in this form, a lightness, a kind of freedom. Everything is pared down to simple instincts, a constant awareness of the world around me, vivid and endless. There is no room for the heaviness of human thoughts, for worries or memories. Only this overwhelming presence, an acceptance of the moment exactly as it is. As I stand on the vast landscape of my own hand, taking in this strange new reality, a flicker of movement catches my eye, or rather, my countless eyes. Something shifts in the shadows beside me, a faint, nearly invisible tremor in the air. I turn, but my vision is fragmented, split into countless tiny lenses, and it takes a moment to focus on the source of this new presence. The spider emerges slowly from the edge of my vision, a dark, hulking shape moving with an eerie stillness. Its body is covered in a velvet-like fur, tiny hairs bristling along its legs and abdomen, which glisten with a faint, oily sheen. Each leg, impossibly long and jointed, moves with precision as it steps forward, one careful, silent movement after another, as though each step is a calculated approach. Its legs end in fine, curved hooks that seem to cling effortlessly to the surface beneath, allowing it to move silently, effortlessly, even on this strange, uneven terrain. Its eyes, 8 of them, glossy and black, glimmer faintly, each one a perfect tiny orb reflecting a fractured image of me. They stare unblinking, fixed on me with an unnerving focus, as if it can sense every tremor of fear, every instinct I have to flee. I'm frozen, my wings locked in place, and for a brief moment I feel the full weight of this new, vulnerable form. I am small, helpless, a mere morsel in the eyes of this hunter. My entire being pulses with the urge to fly, but my wings feel foreign, like limbs I haven't yet learned to use. The spider draws closer, and I see the intricate patterns on its body, a tapestry of dark and light, spots and faint stripes woven into its bristling fur. Its mandibles, sharp and dark, twitch slightly, glistening as it inches forward, a gleaming pair of fangs jutting from beneath, curved like daggers, poised and ready. Each step seems to slow time, and I can almost hear the silent, rhythmic beat of its approach, like the quiet drum of inevitability. Then, instinct overpowers thought. In a burst of pure, primal desperation, I feel my wings jerk into motion. I am lifted suddenly, my body lurching upward, jolted into the air in a frenzy of unsteady motion. I can barely control my direction, darting forward and back, veering sharply as if some invisible force is pulling me along in erratic bursts. I feel my tiny legs pulling close to my body, my wings working at a speed that seems impossible, vibrating so fast that the air buzzes around me in a chaotic hum. Below me, the spider shifts, one leg extending as if to snatch me from the air, but I'm already gone, darting upward, away from the danger, propelled by a desperate, frantic will to escape. My flight is wild, each movement jerky and unsteady, a chaotic zigzag as I twist and turn, barely managing to hold myself aloft. I feel a rush of air around me, the world below turning into a blurred expanse, the tree receding, the patch of grass beneath me blending into a sea of green as I shoot forward, each wing beat propelling me further, faster, away from the spider's reach. But there is no relief. The city looms ahead, a cacophony of noise that grows louder with each desperate wing beat. The sounds are overwhelming, blaring car horns, distant voices, the roar of engines, all blending into a relentless, chaotic symphony. I find myself hurtling towards it, unable to control my direction, my wings still moving in a frenzied, uncontrolled rhythm. My flight feels like falling upward, a dizzying spiral as I'm pulled toward the noise, away from the safety of the shade and the familiar patch of earth. I twist and turn, darting one way, then the other, but each movement only sends me further into the city's grasp. The world is a blur of colors and sounds, everything amplified to a disorienting intensity. I feel the rush of wind from a passing car, a gust so powerful that it sends me spiraling off course. My wings flap wildly as I struggle to steady myself, my small body buffeted by the forces around me, caught in the unpredictable currents of this strange, relentless world. Somewhere beneath the chaos, a tiny part of me clings to a memory of the shade, of the peace that once surrounded me under the tree. But it feels distant now, like a fading dream, drowned out by the thrum of city life. All I can do is keep moving, keep fighting to stay aloft, to navigate this new reality, one chaotic wingbeat at a time. Amid the chaos of noise and movement, a sudden thought pierces my mind, grounding me. Home. Somehow, even in this bewildering new form, I know where I need to go. My house, our house, isn't far from the park, and with a burst of determination, I turn my frantic, clumsy flight in its direction. I have no map, no clear path, only an instinctual pull, a small anchor amidst the dizzying maze of the city. The journey feels endless, each block stretching out before me like a vast, perilous terrain. Cars roar past, gusts of wind tearing through my delicate wings, almost knocking me from the sky with every passing vehicle. I dodge massive figures, people walking along the sidewalk, each of them oblivious to my tiny struggle, as I weave around their giant steps, narrowly avoiding the crushing weight of their shoes. The air feels thick, heavy, filled with the overwhelming scent of exhaust fumes and the endless cacophony of urban life. Every inch forward is a fight, my wings trembling with the effort, my small body buffeted by forces beyond my control. But at last, there it is, the familiar red door, the welcome sight of our house standing steady and serene amidst the blur of city life. I land, almost collapsing with relief, on the cool metal of the railing near the steps. I rest for a moment, catching my breath, savoring the relief of having made it back to somewhere I know, somewhere that feels safe, even in this bewildering state. Through the front window, I catch sight of her, my wife. She's sitting at the kitchen table, the late afternoon light casting a warm glow over her face. The sight of her fills me with a surge of hope, a fragile but insistent belief that somehow I can make her understand, that she'll recognize me despite this absurd, tiny form. With a burst of renewed strength, I push myself off the railing and hover toward her, slipping through a small opening in the window screen and drifting down into the familiar warmth of our kitchen. She's absorbed in a book, completely unaware of my tiny presence as I struggle to control my flight, drawing closer, closer, until finally I land on the back of her hand. The warmth of her skin radiates through my fragile legs, familiar and comforting. I feel an overwhelming urge to reach out, to somehow convey that it's me, that I'm here. I move, trembling, across her skin, tiny gestures meant to communicate, hoping that some part of her might feel it, might somehow recognize my touch. But then I see her eyes shift, her expression turning to one of faint irritation as she notices the small, unwelcome creature on her hand. Her brow furrows, and a faint look of disgust crosses her face. I try to stay still, to somehow hold her gaze, but before I can even comprehend what's happening, she reaches for the newspaper on the table. Time slows as I see her hand lifting, the edges of the newspaper poised like a hammer above me. A primal fear surges through my body, an instinct takes over. My wings burst into motion as I push myself upward, away from the force of the swinging paper. I dart into the air, my flight a chaotic, unsteady scramble as I narrowly avoid the blow. The gust of air from her swing almost knocks me off balance, but I manage to regain control, hovering in the air, stunned and shaken. I hover there, a small, helpless creature in my own home, watching as she shakes her head and returns to her book, completely unaware of what's just happened, of who I am, of the silent scream I tried to send her way. The ache of abandonment seeps through me, sharp and piercing. I want to shout, to somehow make her see me, but all I can do is float there, small and silent, a stranger in my own world. I flee, my flight unsteady, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and sorrow. I navigate my way through the kitchen, the rooms filled with once familiar objects, now looming large and menacing. It feels as though I'm trapped in some strange, surreal nightmare, where everything I know has become alien, where even the love I once relied on is unreachable. Out of the house and back into the open air, I drift aimlessly, buffeted by the wind, feeling smaller and more lost than ever. I am a fly, a creature of no significance, abandoned by the life I once knew. The world moves on around me, indifferent, vast, and utterly unknowing. The city lights blur into a soft, trembling glow as I drift aimlessly through the night air. In this tiny, alien form, everything seems larger and crueler. Each gust of wind sends my fragile body into a wild spiral, each sound amplified into a deafening hum. But there's a silence inside me, a quiet grief that presses down heavier than the night itself. I can't shake the memory of her, the look in my wife's eyes as she swatted me away without a second thought. It wasn't her fault, I tell myself. She couldn't have known. But that doesn't ease the sting. There, on the back of her hand, I felt as if my entire world was reaching out to her, straining to be understood, and in one swift motion, she brushed me aside, as though I were nothing more than a nuisance, something to be rid of and forgotten. A numbness settles over me, and I begin to lose track of myself. My legs twitch, lifting to my mouth almost involuntarily. I find myself rubbing my front limbs together, a compulsive motion, cleaning them over and over with an instinctive, alien rhythm. I try to stop, to resist, but my body betrays me, moving in ways I can't control, gestures that feel foreign and wrong. The realization seeps in slowly. I'm losing myself, becoming the very creature I despise, this insignificant buzzing speck. Each flick of my legs, each twitch of my wings, feels like another piece of my humanity slipping away. Then, in the distance, I catch a scent drifting through the cool night air. It's an unpleasant odor, sharp and earthy, an unmistakable scent of decay. Despite myself, I'm drawn to it, a strange hunger stirring in the pit of this tiny, alien stomach. It's a garbage dump, sprawling and shadowed, heaped with discarded waste, and I find myself drifting toward it, helpless against the pull of this primal, instinctive urge. As I approach, I notice movement, a sea of tiny black shapes crawling over the heaps of garbage. Flies, roaches, and other scavengers crawl and buzz over the refuse, alive with a kind of frenzied purpose. In the dim light, I see their wings and limbs glistening, their bodies moving in sync, drawn by the same hunger, the same instinct to consume. My heart sinks as I realize they are just like me, these other creatures, each one moving with that mechanical precision, the instinct to survive, driven by hunger and nothing more. I feel a deep ache, a hollow sense of recognition. Here I am, among them, indistinguishable, one of a countless swarm. The thought that others like me, other people, might have ended up in these twisted forms crosses my mind. I wonder if they too reached out to those they loved, only to be swatted aside. The reality of it presses down like a weight on my tiny frame, heavier than I can bear. In that moment I understand. It's not my human form that I lost. It's something deeper, something essential, something that I can't even name. I thought I was clinging to the remnants of who I was, but that ember of my former self is nearly extinguished, lost beneath layers of instinct and futility. The last piece of my humanity, the part that loved, that hoped, that dreamed slips further away, buried beneath the weight of wings and compound eyes, lost among a swarm of lost souls in the refuse of the world. And here, in the darkness, surrounded by others who have lost themselves, I realize that I am more than alone. I am forsaken, drifting endlessly in a world that no longer recognizes me, no longer even knows I exist.